Just before we sit down, I want to welcome J.John. J.John needs no introduction, I'm sure, to most of us. He's a prolific writer, a great communicator all over the world, not only here, but also internationally. And it's our incredible privilege to have him come and share with us what the Lord has laid on his heart. I don't know of any better communicator of the good news of the gospel than he is in our season at the moment. And so I want you to give him an absolutely fantastic Aberdeen welcome. Let's give him a great welcome. Bless you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good morning.
Good morning.
Please be seated. I really like your pastor. He's a really cool dude, isn't he? And I like his wife. And they've got a lot of potential, haven't they? Well, it really is great to be here. Thank you so much for the welcome. My wife and I are thrilled to come up and spend this Sunday with you. Do you know, when people ask me, what do I do? It's always very difficult to know what to say to people. Because if I say to them that I'm a reverend, which I am, that conjures up images in people's minds as to what I might be like. So I often like to be a little bit creative in telling people what I do. I sat next to this lady on an aeroplane at Heathrow Airport, and I said, hello. And she said, oh, hello. I said, where are you going? And she said, Singapore. Then she said to me, where are you going? I said, I'm going to Australia. And I said, what do you do? So she told me. And then she said, what do you do? And I said, well, I work for a global enterprise. She said, do you? I said, yes, I do. We've got outlets in nearly every country of the world. She said, have you? I said, yes, we have. I said, we've got hospitals, we've got hospices, we've got orphanages, we do justice work, we do reconciliation work, we've got schools, we do marriage work. I said, basically, we look after people from birth to death, and we deal in the area of behavioral alteration. She went, wow! Her wow was so loud, loads of people turned round and looked at us. She goes, what's it called? I said, it's called the church. Have you heard of it? You know, when people say, what does the church do? Well, we are a global enterprise. We change and transform people's lives and transform their communities. And compassion, which my wife and I have been supporting for 30 years. We've been sponsoring children for 30 years. And they're an example of what the church does globally in transforming lives. And if any of you can sponsor a child, it really is enriching to be able to do this and journey with a child and transform their lives and transform their future and destiny. Anyway, I spoke to the woman a bit more because she started to ask me about the church. And it became very, very obvious in just a few minutes that her understanding of Christianity was a misunderstanding. And I think that's true for a lot of people today. A lot of people's understanding of Christianity is a misunderstanding, right? And that's why your pastor has asked me to come here this morning to explain Christianity. So that's what I'm going to do now. I'm going to explain Christianity to you, okay? When I conclude, if you would like to begin this journey of being a Christian, or maybe you used to be and you kind of shelved it, but you want to come back, if that is you, I will ask you to get up out of your seat, out of the rows, and I will ask you to come and stand here at the front. Now, I'm telling you that now so that when I tell you in 30 minutes' time, you won't be surprised. Okay? No surprises, okay? So you can chill just chill, relax, but some of you are going to do this, okay? Right, what is Christianity? I think one of the easiest ways to understand Christianity is to consider it as an invitation. Now, if you're anything like me, I'm sure you appreciate invitations. I mean, even if you can't go, you think, oh, wasn't it nice? They invited me. It's nice. There was this professor from overseas in England, and he was doing a semester at a university. And while he was at the university, he received a wedding invitation, he and his wife. And at the bottom of the card, they had the letters RSVP. Now, they didn't have that code back in their country. So the professor, he was trying to crack the code. And then he says to his wife, yes. His wife said, what? He said, RSVP, remember some wedding present. Now, the professor, he thought it was a demand, but actually it was an offer. Now, you and I, we know what those letters stand for. They're French. They stand for Respondez s'il vous plaît, which basically means, are you going to come? And when we send out an invitation like that, we put a date. So if you don't reply by the date, you can't go. Now, every single one of us here today, we are being offered the Christian invitation, RSVP, the 23rd of September, 2018. Now, you're thinking, J.John, tell me, will I be offered it tomorrow? I don't know. You're like, what do you mean you don't know? I said, well, I don't know. Why don't you know? Listen, none of us can guarantee that we're going to be here tomorrow. That's why it's really important to reply to the invitation while you're still alive. You got that? You know, some people have got the idea at the 11th hour. At the 11th hour, I'll say a little prayer. I'll sort myself out with Jesus. What if you died at 10:30? You've blown it. Really important to reply to the invitation. Okay, there's a very... when you get an invitation, there are three things you want to know. You want to know who's it from, who's it to, what's it about. Okay, let's answer those three questions. There's a very famous verse in the Bible, and it's located in John's Gospel, chapter 3, verse 16. And it says this, "For God so loved the world that he gave his only Son, so whoever believes in him should not perish, but have everlasting life." That one verse in the Bible answers those three questions. Who's it from? Who's it to? What's it about? So, let's answer them. Who's it from? For God. It starts from God. G-O-D. Now, what does G-O-D mean? Did you know that when the first Russian astronaut returned from space, first interview, first question, did you see God? He said, no, I did not. The Soviet Union heralded this as proof that God did not exist. When the first American astronaut returned from space, first interview, fourth question, did you see God? He said, I would have seen God had I stepped out of my spacesuit. You see, two completely different understandings of the word God. You know, there are many people today who kind of ask the wrong questions. If you ask the wrong question, you can never get the right answer. So the right question to ask is, has God revealed himself? Yes, God has revealed himself. God has revealed himself in creation. God has revealed himself throughout history. But God's greatest revelation of himself for all time, for all cultures, was in Jesus Christ. The invisible God became visible in Jesus. The intangible God became tangible in Jesus. The unknowable God became knowable in Jesus. Jesus is the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords. In other words, he's the King of the entire universe. The invitation is from him. It's from him. Who to? For God so loved the world. Every single one of us. Irrespective of our background, our age, the color of our skin, the invitation is being offered to every single one of us. Now, not everybody acknowledges the invitation, but just because we don't acknowledge the invitation does not mean we're not being offered the invitation. It's from Jesus, it's to you, it's to me. What is Christianity about? The Bible has got 800,000 words in it. If you had to summarize it, what's it about? It's only about three things. The whole of the Bible, the whole of Christianity is just about three things. 1, forgiveness from the past. 2, new life here today. 3, a hope for the future. Everything else in the Bible is what we call commentary and application of these three principles. Principle 1, forgiveness from the past. Now, do you agree with the following statement? There are problems in the world today. Do you agree with that? Yeah. Of course we do. There are problems globally. There are problems socially. There are problems domestically. There are problems personally. Now, many governments of the world, many social agencies, many charities, they're trying to alleviate the symptoms. Now, if you try and alleviate the symptoms, you're always going to have the symptoms unless you deal with the root cause. So the question is, what is the root cause of everything that is wrong in the world today? There was a mother. She said to her husband, "Darling, look after Annie for me, their daughter. I need to get on." So the father thought, okay, and he thought, what could he do to occupy his little girl? So he flicks through this big magazine and he sees a map of the world. He says to her, "Annie, watch what I'm going to do." He cut the map of the world into small squares and he muddled the squares on the floor. And he said, "Annie, I want you to put the squares back together again, like a puzzle, to make the map of the world. When you've done that, come and find me." So the father thought that will keep her occupied for a bit. But within minutes, she's like, "Daddy, I've done it." And he's like, "Well, she couldn't have done it. Let's have a look." He went and had a look. All the squares were put in exactly the right place. He said, "Annie, how did you know where to put all the squares?" "Ah," she said, "when you were cutting the map out, I looked on the other side. And I saw a picture of a man and a woman. And I thought, if I could put the man and the woman back together again, I could put the world back together again." You see, the heart of the human problem is the problem of the human heart. That's worth tweeting. Tweet that, tweet that. That is it. I'm Canon J.John, all right? Tweet it. Let's go viral. Let's go global, okay? Repeat after me. The heart of the human problem is the problem of the human heart. That's what's at the heart of everything that's wrong in the world today. We all have a heart disease. We all have a heart dis-ease. And the Bible word for that heart condition, the Bible word for it is sin. That's what the word is. And it's out of the human heart that come all the seeds that infect and affect our relationships, our families, our communities, our countries, our continents. It's out of the human heart. Let me illustrate it for you in a slightly different way. Just imagine you passed out of this life now. This is just an illustration. You woke up in a gigantic theatre, sitting there on your own. In front of you is a huge screen. All of a sudden, the doors open, an angel flies in, comes up to you and says, "Welcome to the theatre of judgment. Relax." Watch the screen. Now, there on the screen, you see your life. Everything you ever did here on earth, everything you ever said here on earth, and everything you ever thought, you see it on the screen. At the end of the film, as you're recovering, the angel comes back and says, "Relax, there's going to be a second showing." All the people who were featured in the film of your life are all waiting outside. We're going to let them in to view your life a second time. How would you feel if your life were judged on that basis? That's exactly how God judges us, in an instant. That's how we're judged, in just like that. I would not want a private viewing, let alone a public viewing of my life. I don't need convincing that I've thought, said, and done things that I shouldn't have. I don't need convincing. I mean, God, your thought life, okay, only your thought life, what film rating would you give that? Would it be suitable for family viewing? Yeah, we're only thought life, only thought life. What about all the stuff you've said? And what about all the stuff you've done? Would that be suitable for family viewing? You see, what a lot of people don't realize is that all that stuff on the film has consequences. A lot of people think it doesn't matter. It does matter. Because everything on that film disconnects us from God. And it works a bit like an overdraft in a bank account. And if you have an overdraft and I have an overdraft, I can't help you, you can't help me. The only one who can help us is someone in credit. Jesus was the only one in credit. Jesus came into the world not to rub it in, but to rub it out. Jesus came into this world to do something for us. There was a famous artist, and he went back to the very small rural community where he was born and brought up. And he's just walking around the village stores, and there's an antique shop. He looks in the window. He cannot believe what he sees. In the window is one of his paintings. It was a painting that he'd painted years before he was famous. The frame was broken. The picture was dirty and scratched. But it was his. But he couldn't go into the antique shop and say to the manager, "Hey, that's my painting. Give it back to me." If he wanted it back, he had to buy it back before he could clean it, restore it, and then reframe it. That's what Jesus did on the cross. Jesus died on the cross so that we could be cleansed. Jesus died on the cross so that we could be restored. Jesus died on the cross so that we could be reframed. He died on the cross because by dying on the cross, he was offering us, it was as if he was offering us a check signed with his own blood to say, here is the check to clear your overdraft. You and I can experience forgiveness from the past. When you experience forgiveness from the past, it is so cathartic, so cleansing, so therapeutic, so releasing, and it transforms how you live your life in the future. I was an agnostic, and when I was a student in London, I met a Christian. And over a period of time, and he gave me a Bible and helped me understand it, I came to know Jesus. And when I came to know Jesus, it transformed me. My mother said to me, "You're brainwashed." I said, "Mother, my brain has been washed. If you only knew, Mum, what was in my brain, you'd be pleased it did get washed." And it does get washed. You and I are being offered forgiveness from the past. 2, new life here today. We're being offered new life here today. The word Christian has got the word Christ in it. If you remove the word Christ from the word Christian, you're left with I-A-N. Ian isn't going to help you. How appropriate. Now, we're not saying Ian isn't a nice guy. He is a nice guy. We've already stated that. And I'm sure he'll change your car tire if you needed a bit of help. But I'll tell you this, he ain't going to change your destiny. You see, to be a Christian, you've got to be connected to Christ. You've got to have that Christ connection. Do you know, I meet a lot of people who call themselves Christians, and then I start asking them a few little questions. They know more about Ian than they do about Christ. You've got to have a connection with Christ. Now, think of your life for a moment like a car, okay? Just work with me on this analogy, okay? The car of your life. So, using this analogy, to be a Christian means Christ is in your car. Okay, so if I said to you, is Christ in your car? I'm sure many of you are thinking, yeah, he's in the car, Okay, where is he in the car? Do you drive your car to church, unlock the boot, get Jesus out for a religious happy hour? At the end of the service, get back in there. No one would know the rest of the week. You don't sound like a Christian. You don't live like a Christian. You don't act like a Christian. Oh, yeah, I do the Sunday morning religious happy hour. Others of you are going, no, J.John, he's not in the boot. He's in the car. Great. Where is he in the car? Back seat, a bit of a passenger. You're thinking, no, he's in the front. What, front passenger seat? A bit more of a companion, but still a passenger? Now, you're one step ahead of me now. You're thinking, we know where you're going with this analogy. You don't actually, but you think, I'm now going to say to you, is Jesus in the driving seat? I am. Is Jesus in the driving seat? So everyone here who thought, yes, Jesus is in the driving seat. One more question for you. Are you a backseat driver? The car gets to a cross section. Jesus turns left. Where are you going? I'm going down the road of generosity. I don't want to be generous. You know, a lot of people in Britain think they're generous. They squeeze the pound so tightly, they make the Queen cry. The car gets to a roundabout. Jesus turns right. Where are you going? I'm going down the road of forgiveness. I don't want to forgive her. You see, it's very easy to say, I've got Jesus. I've got Jesus. But are we living in the way that Jesus wants us to live? Are we speaking in the way that Jesus wants us to speak? Are we thinking? That's the important thing. Do our lives reflect the truth that we are following Jesus Christ? Okay, how do we know? How do we know if he's in the driving seat? Well, ask 5 questions. How do we know he's first? Take the word first. F-I-R-S-T. 5 questions. Is he F, first in my finances? I, is he first in my interests? R, is he first in my relationships? You see, when couples both are saying they're Christians and there's major conflict between, say, a husband and a wife, okay? If a husband has got Christ first and a wife has got Christ first, then Christ isn't going to hurt Christ? Is he first in my relationships? S, is he first in my schedule? T, is he first in my troubles? If I can say he's first in my finances, interests, relationships, schedule, troubles, whew, that's a pretty good sign that he's in the driving seat of our lives. If I can't say that, it's a little bit like you've got a little light flashing in your dashboard to tell you there's a problem with your car. You see, and some of us might need realigning. Some of us might need our tires pressured up a bit. Some of us might need an oil change. Some of us might need a new engine. You see, when we invite Jesus into our lives, he comes in by his Holy Spirit. And his Holy Spirit working in us produces love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, gentleness, faithfulness, and self-control. So if you've been a follower of Christ for a while, how much of this do you have? Love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, gentleness, faithfulness, self-control. If you're lacking any of those, it probably means there's a little blockage. And it might be, without you realizing, he's not in the driving seat, he's a passenger. And for some of us today, what you might need to do is to say, hey, I didn't realize this. I actually didn't realize it till this morning. Wow. I've always thought I had Jesus in my life, but he's in the boot, he's in the trunk, or he's on the back seat. So you might need today to say, Jesus, I want to reposition you in the driving seat of my life because I really want to go all out for you and I want to experience all the benefits of what you've offered me. New life today. Who's it from? Jesus. Who's it to? You and me. What's it about? Forgiveness from the past, new life here today. Thirdly, our hope for the future. And that word has come up several times during our service this morning. Having a hope, having a hope. A lot of people's hope is a bit like a hospital gown. You're usually not as well covered as you think you are. You know, you sometimes hear people like, I hope so, I hope. No. We can have hope. Hope. Listen to what Jesus said. Men and women are traveling along one of two roads. Men and women are serving one of two masters. Men and women are building their lives on one of two foundations. Men and women are going into one of two doors. Men and women are heading towards one of two destinies: heaven, hell. Now, these are the words that Jesus used. Whoa! Why would he say that? You know, if we go and see our GP and they diagnose a problem, why do they tell us? They tell us so that we know and we can take appropriate action. See, Jesus was telling us the truth. Our lives here on earth, it's not a game. Not a game at all. The Bible says that a very good life, the length of a very good life is 70 years and 10. Now, 70 years and 10, okay, that's 70 years. Okay, now we've got 70 years, 7 days of the week, okay? Let's add 10 years per day of the week. 10 years for Monday, 10 years for Tuesday, 10 years for Wednesday, and so on. Okay, let's just travel through my life. I've gone through Monday, I've gone through Tuesday, I've gone through Wednesday, I've gone through Thursday, I've gone through Friday, I've gone through Saturday, I'm Sunday morning. How's your weekend looking? I know I look good, but I'm Sunday. I'm already Sunday. Now, some of you are older than 70, and you're wondering what's happening. God's given you an extra bank holiday Monday. And some of us get an extra bank holiday Monday. Do you know, some people get an extra bank holiday Tuesday. Do you know something? Not many people ever get an extra bank holiday Wednesday. Now, even if you got given an extra bank holiday Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, that's 100 years, do you realize that 100 years is a blip on the eternal screen? It's just a blip. We are being offered a hope for the future. Let's go back to our verse. For God so loved the world, you and me, for God so loved the world, he gave his only Son, so whoever believes in him should not perish, but have everlasting life. We are being offered that. If it took Jesus, his death on a cross, to get us there, it must be worth going there. And when you encounter Jesus, honestly, it is transforming. And when you've experienced the presence of his Spirit, and you've experienced the presence of the purity of his presence, the peace of his presence, the power of his presence, it kind of gives you this thirst for eternity. What is Christianity? Christianity is an invitation. Who's it from? It's from Jesus. Who is it to? You and me. What is it about? Forgiveness from the past, new life here today, and a hope for the future. Répondez s'il vous plaît. What have you done with your invitation? Last year, Killy and I got invited. We received an invitation from 10 Downing Street, and it said this: Dear Canon J.John and Mrs. John, the Prime Minister would like to invite you both to come and have tea with her. So I read it, and I said to my wife, "Oh, this is a joke." I said, "There's no way we've been invited to go and have tea with her." I said, "This must have been sent out to hundreds and hundreds of people." And my wife goes, "Yeah, but what if it's true?" I said, "Oh, it can't be true. I mean, there's no way. I mean, she's a little bit busy. She's not going to invite us for a cup of tea, is she?" My wife goes, "Well, yeah, but what if it's true? Are you willing to risk your own selfish thinking that it might not be true, and hundreds of people are being invited, and you probably won't even get to speak to her?" So in the end, I was like, "Oh, all right then, let's go," reluctantly. And it was just a very busy week, and I had to adjust some other things to go, and I thought, I didn't really want to go. Anyway, we arrived there, and who's right? I was right. Hundreds of people are going into 10 Downing Street, and we get ushered into this lovely stately room, and I thought, "Oh yeah, see, I was right. See, and I thought, "Oh well, we might as well mingle, meet a few people, have a little canapé and go home." And then I get a tap on my shoulder like this: "Canon John, would you and your wife please accompany me?" I said, "Where?" And they said, "Well, would you accompany me?" And I'm like, "Why? Would you accompany me?" They said, "I'd like to know where we're going. Where are we going?" Anyway, so we're following this man, and he takes us out, and he takes us into this private room, and we're in there, and he goes, "Could you please wait here, please, because the Prime Minister would like to come and meet you." Wasn't it a good job I went? Wasn't it a good job my wife nagged me to accept the invitation? And so we're standing in there, and then she walks in. Oh, I've looked forward to meeting you. And we're having a chat, and I'm speaking to her, and I'm advising her, and I've got my hand on her shoulder, and we're like buddies. And and I wasn't going to go because I thought, there's no way this is a real invitation. It's a good job I went. You know, some people sometimes think a little bit like that. Listen. Until you've accepted the invitation, you won't really know what you're going to experience. I took that step and it transformed my life. Pastor Ian, he took that step, it transformed his life. Many of us here have taken that step, it's transformed our lives. Now, when you hear something like what you've heard this morning, I think there are 3 responses. 1, you can accept it. And some of you, you know you need to accept it. And in a few minutes, I will ask you to get up out of your seats, out of the rows, come and stand here at the front. Some of you might be a little bit unconvinced. So you can investigate it. You can investigate it. And one way you can investigate it is to do the course that was mentioned earlier, the Alpha course. And if you can do the Alpha course, do the Alpha course. Now, if you can't do the Alpha course, the church will help you investigate it in other ways. They'll visit you, talk with you, meet with you. Now, you can all come as well if you want to investigate. You come to the front. And thirdly, some of you can choose to reject it. I would not recommend that at all, but that's your choice. Are all the band? Can I get all the band here now, please? Can you all please stand? So in a minute, we're going to sing one of my favorite songs, hymns, Amazing Grace. It was written by a man called John Newton. And John Newton said, I broke all of God's 10 commandments. He actually wrote this: I was a liar, a deceiver, an adulterer, and a murderer. But when I experienced Christ, it was so amazing that I experienced this grace. And he tried to express it and articulate it in that beautiful hymn, Amazing Grace. Some of you need to experience that. So we're going to sing this in a minute. It's only 4 verses. Please don't wait till the last line of the last verse. Okay? When we start singing it, that will be your opportunity to come. Now, you're wondering, why should I come? Why should I walk out here? Well, it's a number of reasons. While I've been speaking, your mind has been working. And you may have thought on occasions that was really interesting. I never knew that. On other times, your heart may have been touched. It may have been touched during the worship. It may have been touched as I spoke. But nothing will happen unless you use your will. When 2 people get married, they're out there in the front. The minister says to the man, will you take this woman to be your lawful wedded wife? And he says, well, I've been thinking actually. Well, we're glad he's been thinking, aren't we? We're glad. But that wasn't the question. The question was, will you? And he goes, well, I get rather excited, actually, when I think about her. Well, we're glad he gets excited. But the minister didn't say, do you get excited? He says, will you? And the man says, I will. And then the minister says to the woman, will you take this idiot to be your lawful wedded husband? I think sometimes we don't exercise our will. And we need to exercise our will. And I want you to do that with the whole of your being, the whole of your body. Now, if you're a member of this church and you've brought a friend or a relative, turn to them and say, do you want to go forward? Do you want me to accompany you? And if they want you to accompany them, that is absolutely fine. Come together. Some of you need to reposition Jesus. You come out. If you need to come with a friend, come with a friend. Otherwise, just come out on your own. Now, I know how we're very human, aren't we? You're thinking, I'm in the middle of a row. How am I going to get out? You just move. People know where you're going and they'll make way for you. And if they don't, you just push them. When you're out here at the front, what's going to happen? I will pray a prayer. I will ask you to pray the prayer. When you've prayed the prayer, I will say a prayer for you. And then all we want to do, and Pastor Ian will come and explain, we just want to give you this little pack. Give this to you. Inside the pack, there's John's Gospel, the verse that I quoted from. We want to give that to you as a gift. We want to give you this little book that I've written called Making the Connection. And we want to say a prayer for you. That's it. And if you want to do anything else, an alpha or meet anyone or do anything, we'll try and help you on your journey of faith. That's it. So, we're going to sing Amazing Grace. And as we begin singing Amazing Grace, that's your cue. Either come out of the rows by yourself or bring a friend and come and fill this front, ready to receive Christ or reposition Jesus. Amazing Grace. Please come. Come now.